Hello, everybody. Crypto Chaperone here. And today, wow, if you've been paying attention to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, you've probably seen the massive new all time highs we have hit on our market cap as well as Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin has topped out at over $14,700, very close to $15,000. Massive gains. It has gone up over 20% in the last 24 hours and done more than doubled from its lowest point in the last month. We've also seen the market cap approach almost $400 billion in the past 24 hours, and it is slowly dropped down about $6 billion from where its highest point was. It was about $397 billion. So we were about $3 billion away from $400 billion. And that is only $100 billion away from a $500 billion market cap, which is massive for cryptocurrencies. And I think as cryptocurrencies grow, as we continue into this next year, I think we are going to see that $500 billion mark broken and very well past. I think we're going to see the $1 trillion mark broken by sometime in January, and I think we're going to hit possibly $1.5 trillion by potentially April. I think this market is going to boom, and I think if you have your money invested in the right places, you could potentially be making a lot of money in this. Bitcoin, if you invested any time, if you've heard about it from your family or whatever during Thanksgiving or whatnot, you're definitely enjoying your profits that you've been taking from this point. And if you have been pulling out any of your money, and potentially if you're not one of the investors that got caught on the sideline when there was that very temporary dip and then Bitcoin's been on a straight upwards shot ever since then, I'm sure you're really enjoying it. If you're one of those investors, potentially maybe you've bought back in by now, or maybe you're still sitting on the sideline waiting for that dip to come again. I know a lot of people, market analysis and everybody, this is just crazy. All of this growth so fast is crazy, and everybody is predicting a pullback. Everyone's been predicting a pullback for the last $4,000 or $5,000 we've had, and it's just really never come. We had that very minor pullback, and it got filled up and recovered so quickly, and a lot of people got caught out on the sidelines, as I was talking about yesterday in my video, that if we do have another pullback or dip, I think it's going to be closed up so quickly and it's going to recover so quickly because you either have all these investors that are still sitting on the sidelines with their money that are waiting to buy back in, or they might just be buying back in small bits right now, and that's why we have this steady rise in price. Could be a lot affecting the price, and I also want to get into something else that could be affecting the price. So if you've been paying attention to my videos recently, you've heard that I've been talking a lot about Bitcoin's futures being traded in the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more and why the price of Bitcoin could be raising exponentially based on that. And I don't mean based on it because it's been announced in the news and the media and everybody's trying to get into it because it's going to be the next best thing. The more and more I look into this and the more I've really thought about it, this could actually be institutional money manipulating Bitcoin for them to benefit in the futures trade as well as Bitcoins in general. And I'm going to break that down for you guys right now. If you've been paying attention to anything, since the Chicago Mercantile Exchange news broke, Bitcoin's market cap, or cryptocurrency's market cap in general, has pretty much doubled. Bitcoin's price has done more than doubled. I think it was about like $5,000 when they announced that it was going to be traded on the exchange. So it's pretty much tripled from there. And it's also, I've heard a lot of news that it is going to be listed on the NASDAQ by the end of the second quarter in 2018, which should definitely propel the price a lot. But I'm going to get back into what I was talking about. As this institutional money is buying into it, you could have these big people who are stockbrokers or whatnot that are going to be partaking in this these futures trades, and they could have been buying $20 and $30 million worth of Bitcoin, and they could just be holding it right now, and they're sitting on some very, very big gains. They may have potentially tripled their money if they bought at the very beginning of this news at this point. Or even if they bought in only at $5 or $10 million, I'm talking about big whales. I'm not talking about just like small investors, people that you still think are big. Even like $1 million investors are big, but there are very big whales out there that are really just trying to get this all set up right now so they can make the most money they pretty much can. As the news broke, all the public starts buying into Bitcoin, and the public's interest for Bitcoin really rises. You have all these institutional investors. They're really putting a lot of money into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. That's why you've seen this cap grow so rapidly. Now, if they did invest at a third of the price a while ago, they might be sitting at 3 times their gain right now, and they might have a decent amount of Bitcoin based on however much they invested. Now, Bitcoin's futures are going to be traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Now, that does not mean that Bitcoin is going to be traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Futures are not the actual object itself. Futures are merely just a price set in time, and you are pretty much betting on the outcome of that price. It's going to look pretty much just like a normal exchange. You're going to have buy orders and sell orders, and those are pretty much contracts. Those are futures contracts, and these contracts are going to be people that are buying and selling what they have pretty much bought themselves or sold themselves into. And these contracts are based off of Bitcoin's price. These contracts are going to be initially made on Bitcoin's price, and you're going to have somebody that says, I want to hold on to these futures contracts only last for 90 days at the most. So you're going to have somebody that says, I want to hold on to Bitcoin. We'll say what its price is right now at $14,238. They think it's going to go up from this point. So they're going to say, I want to buy from $14,238. So in 3 months, they think the price is going to be higher than this. So they're going to go long, and they're going to say, yeah, I'll buy this coin at this price at $14,238 in 90 days. On the other end of that, you're going to have somebody that's takes the other end of the contract, and they're going to go short, and they're going to take the opposite end of it, and they're going to say, yeah, sure, I'll say that Bitcoin is going to be less than $14,238 in 90 days. And where I'm going with this is potentially you could have a lot of these investors who bought into Bitcoin, and they could maybe move the price further down the line. So maybe the price gets made today, and they both lock into their price. Now, if you know anything about futures markets, futures run on a marginal trading leverage. So every day, any price fluctuations in whatever you're investing in is going to be cashed out of your account, your margin account, and or you're going to get the price fluctuation. And why I'm saying that is because Bitcoin fluctuates. Over the past 24 hours, it has actually fluctuated more than what margin accounts have to keep in them. On average, they keep about a 15-to-1 ratio, about 5 to 10% on average is what you have to have in a margin account to trade on. And every day or whenever at the end of your 24 hours, your margin account is going to either credit you with whatever you've gained or take away whatever you've lost. So Bitcoin over the last 24 hours, anybody that thought Bitcoin was going to go high from its last point would be able to cash out their profits more or less into their margin account for the last 24 hours. And anybody that would have shorted Bitcoin for the last 24 hours would be definitely getting a margin call at this point. They would have to be putting more money into their margin account to sustain the price or sustain their position in their Bitcoin futures, or their Bitcoin futures contract would be sold onto the market. Those are the only 2 options. They do not actually hold these contracts. You don't physically hold it in any sort of wallet or anything like that. It's pretty much the broker, which is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and the exchange is more or less going to run these contracts for them. And the reason I'm saying this is because the more and more I hear more people talking about this, the more I hear people talking about how institutional money could short Bitcoin. And I think that that could happen more as the price goes up, because you're going to have a lot more volatility in Bitcoin. So say that somebody, once the price maybe gets up to $15,000, you're going to have maybe somebody who says, yeah, I'm going to buy Bitcoin for the long at the $15,000 mark for 90 days. I think in 90 days, Bitcoin's going to be over $15,000. And on the other end of that, you might have some institutional trader who's got a ton of money who is going to quickly buy up that contract. And on the other end, he also bought up Bitcoin when it was $5,000. So maybe him and a lot of his friends, they buy up all these short end contracts, and they organize sort of like a manipulation on the market where they all sort of sell their bitcoins. You don't need that many people to sell bitcoins to cause a little bit of fear in the market, and a lot of people start to sell their bitcoins. You don't really need a reason to sell them. So if you have these people who have potentially 30-40 million dollars, and they might have gone up 4 or 5 times by now, and it might be $100 million, and you have a group of them, and you're going to have a lot of powerful people trying to make a lot of money right now. This isn't a game anymore. Cryptocurrencies are moving in to the most powerful people, the most wealthy people in the world. So this could potentially happen, but I'm not saying this is going to happen. Bitcoin could continue upward in a straight up trend forever, but just like it has. But that's just not sustainably true. So that's why I think a lot of people are thinking that these institutional traders are going to short Bitcoin to begin with. But I am also adding on that I think these institutional traders are going to be making money selling Bitcoin as well as selling their futures and buying Bitcoin and buying futures and whatnot. They're going to be making money in both markets. Let's get back to where I was. These traders, they buy all these short ends of these contracts, and they all of a sudden they organize maybe a big sell, and they say, yeah, let's sell a lot of our Bitcoins. The market fears, drops Bitcoin down maybe 15-20%. All the margins that these traders, these institutional traders, were trading on for anybody who was buying on the other end of their contract, all those margins are now diminished to nothing. And if they don't put more money in on the opposite end of the contract, the people who are pretty much betting against this institutional money, then their contracts are going to be sold onto the market, and they're going to lose their position. And what could happen necessarily is you could have a lot of these Wall Street brokers and this institutional money, and whoever is trading on this could drain people's money from these margin accounts just based on how many Bitcoins they've had, and they could fluctuate the market with Bitcoins, sell their Bitcoins, sell their short ends, take their profit out of that. As the Bitcoin market starts to recover, they could go long from that point. They could pretty much do the same things that you were doing in cryptocurrencies and on cryptocurrency exchanges, but you're going to be doing it in pretty much a stock figure and cryptocurrencies at the same time. So they drop their Bitcoin price, they all have their big organized sell, and it drops at maybe 15-20%. Now they all sell their contracts, they get out of their short position, they go long, they buy back into Bitcoin after it's dropped back down, and potentially they move the market back up. Now, there could be other outside factors as well that can definitely have some influence on the markets, and it could throw definitely some sticks in their gears as they're trying to do this, if this is something they're even trying to do. This might just be something that I just came to in my head. You have to remember that we're dealing with some of the wealthiest people in the world. They're going to be doing some of the craziest things that you can imagine, especially if they've been seeing regular people. They're going to call us peons, regular peons out here, just making fistfuls of money daily on these big gains. 15% gain today if you invested in Bitcoin within the less than 24 hours ago. That's more money than you are going to make probably in a few good, or holding a good stock for the whole year. So definitely something to watch out for as that news breaks, as we get closer to the actual release on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I think we might see Bitcoin's price start to dip back down, and we might see a lot more volatility in price, more or less. As Bitcoin's price shoots upward at pretty much an exponential rate. Everybody who invested at the very beginning, all these big investors, and I was reading Reddit stories and all this stuff about people who were brokers, and they had people that they were buying money or putting money into Bitcoin for, and they had people who were clients, and they wanted $5 and $10 million of Bitcoin, and these brokers wanted to invest their own money in Bitcoin, and they were going to invest their money first, and then that way they would get the cheaper price, and then they were going to invest their client's money after, so their client would get less Bitcoin, and they would be dealing with the repercussions of the pump market after they bought up all the orders. There's definitely a lot of craziness going on. Money makes people do the craziest things, and you're going to see some of the greediest people in the world, which is Wall Street, getting into some of the biggest profit gaining you're ever going to see in your lifetime, which is cryptocurrencies. So you're definitely going to see a lot more volatility than what we've already seen. Adding on to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange news and all that, I also want to bring up that within the last 24 hours that South Korea has actually said that they're going to ban Bitcoin futures trading in South Korea. So that could have a huge impact on it because futures trading is a worldwide thing. And you have to have people who are willing to buy the opposite end of this if you want to short it. And if you've ever looked at the cryptocurrency market caps page of who's buying Bitcoin, let's check it out and see who's paying the most money for Bitcoin. And if we scroll down, we'll see that, oh wow, the Korean won is paying the most for Bitcoin. Oh wow, the Korean won is paying the most for Bitcoin. So if anything, they're going to be paying the most. They're going to have pretty much the best outlook. They're going to be willing to pay the most on this coin. And if you don't have this market able to compete with these other people, with this institutional money who potentially wants to take their money, you might not have anybody who wants to bet against this institutional money, more or less. You might have more people out there who understand what could be going on and don't want to partake in it, who might just want to stay in the cryptocurrency space. I know a lot of people who trade cryptocurrencies aren't going to want to go just trade on the stock market because Bitcoin futures are there. You want to stay on cryptocurrencies because this is where the real money is at. Just cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and all that is all of these stockbrokers and all these big institutions start to hear this more and more, and it comes up more and more. They're going to be invested in it with their interest and money more and more. So you're going to continue to see this space grow more and more. One more thing, actually, on the Ethereum network, if you are trying to send any Ethereum transactions for any reason, you might want to set your GUI to 50 GUI or set your gas transaction to like 100,000 gas because CryptoKitties are really congesting the Ethereum network. It took me probably about 10 transactions earlier to move my money from the Ether Delta decentralized wallet back into my Ledger Nano S wallet. All I had to do was withdraw it, but every time I did it, my transactions just got stuck in the congested network and they never did anything and they were sitting there pending. So I had to go through and set a higher gas limit until I eventually set a 50 gas limit. It went through pretty much instantly. If you are having any trouble with any of your transactions not going through, you might want to try to set a higher gas limit, and that should send your transaction through. If you are interested in any ICOs or trying to get into any ICOs potentially that don't have a whitelist, I know the Bread Wallet ICO, and that's something I want to talk about soon. It's coming up in a little over a week, and they don't have a whitelist. And with all this congestion in the Ethereum network, it is going to be extremely hard to fight against other people who are trying to get their transactions into the same wallet or the same contract as you. So you're going to have a lot of these people who are going to be spending, if you've ever seen these races to get into these big ICOs before they sell out, if there's no whitelist, there's people who will literally set a 250 million gas limit. They will pay 5% of their whole whatever they're sending in an Ethereum gas limit just to get it through. They were literally willing to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars to get this through, depending on how big of an investment they're putting in. I've seen people sending hundreds of Ethereum and paying 20 and 30 Ethereum as your gas limit just so it'll go through instantly. That's definitely something you're going to want to watch out for if you are trying to compete with anybody in these ICOs by getting in earlier. You're going to maybe, if you really want to get in, you're going to have to set your gas limit as high as you potentially can and as much as you can really afford to get into it if it is a very big ICO that you're going to be competing for. If it's not one you're going to be competing for, potentially maybe wait a couple days if the ICO is going to be open and see if some of this congestion dies down. I know a lot of people are still getting interested in CryptoKitties, and the price of CryptoKitties to do everything is rising exponentially because it is just congesting the network so much. I know to mate your CryptoKitty, I think it's gone up like 7 or 8 times what it was when you initially started it, and that is because that is just getting so congested that it's not worth it anymore to sell it for the lowest price. You have to have a very high fee go through for it to actually transact on the network. And I've also seen a lot of people who say that they're trying to buy these crypto kitties and their transactions aren't even going through because the network is so congested. So you have people trying to buy these things on this network that's congested, and all they're doing is congesting it more, and what they're buying is going to congest it. So I think that's why we've seen such a massive dip in Ethereum over the past 24 hours. It has gone down to, I dipped actually, I think below $400, and it's actually recovered kind of nicely. It's gone up about $40. But if we go check it out, Ethereum did dip to, well, when I was looking at it, it dipped below like 405, but this is the average of all the markets. So if you would have bought it down here, you would have actually been able to pull out a nice kind of like $30 profit, maybe $20 profit. But I'm sure Ethereum will probably start to recover in its price as this whole network congestion starts to die down and they start to figure all this out. I'm not really sure what's going to happen next for all this. And if anything else would like this would ever come onto the Ethereum network, I'm sure it would definitely put a damper on the whole thing. So like I've been saying, if you have not gotten into CryptoKitties, potentially maybe wait for a little bit, just look at what other people are doing with them, and just do it kind of like a Twitch situation where you don't have to do it, but just imagine that someone else is doing it, so that's you. Because if you do get into it, you might be doing a little bit more harm to the network than good, because it's definitely doing a lot of harm to the network. So don't be adding on to the harm and the negativity of the network. And that's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. I'm going to leave you guys with that, and after this, all I can say is subscribe to my channel first, and then go out and look for more people who are trying to teach you about this ever-growing cryptocurrency space, especially when you have this exponential growth rate in Bitcoin. Any day could be the day that they decide to pull out profits, and you could see it crash down to $10,000. And a lot of people who are buying in at almost $15,000 are going to be losing quite a lot of it if it does decide to stabilize down there. So, as I always say, you want to stay vigilant in this space, learn as much as you can, and try to always keep up on the news. And have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. See ya.